And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We're back with more not so deep dives, and this time we're headed north of the border today to chat about the Vancouver Whitecaps. And to do that, of course, we brought back Michael from AFTN to cover all things of the Canadian champions. Michael, how you doing, buddy?
Very good. Glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, happy to have you. Really, really excited. It was one of the first names that popped into the head when we were thinking about who we were going to bring on. Got to bring Michael back. We had such a good time last year, so we're like, no hesitation. Really happy to have you. Also because you had quite the scarf game last time, if I remember correctly. So
Yes,
I'm hoping you've either matched it or one upped it with your scarf of the week today. What are you rocking?
I hope so. Now, last year, I brought my East Fife scarf. That's my team in Scotland. I said I was going to get you one when I went over, and I didn't because when I went over, I was sick.
Oh
I
no.
caught something on the plane, and I wasn't able to get to the game and the stadium, so I couldn't get you one. But I haven't brought a Whitecap scarf. If we do this next year, and if the Whitecaps are still in Vancouver, which we may or may not touch to, I'll maybe do a Whitecaps one next year. So. I cover the amateur game here. I cover the college game here. The team that I'm the commentator for, the University of British Columbia, the Thunderbirds. Now, they're a storied college team in Canadian college soccer. They've won the most men and women's national championships from any university. This year, for the first time ever, they won on both the men and the women's side. It's the first time that a double's been done. And naturally, everyone that's connected with the team is really looking forward to that. So I've brought my UBC Thunderbird scarf. I'll unblur my background for this just so that you can see this properly.
Oh, that is elite.
So it's got the Thunderbird or the Thunderbird itself. It's a Native American like symbolism on it.
Hmm.
And then it's just the UBC Thunderbirds there. They play in blue and gold. So I thought, yeah, let's rock that out as well. Last year I had a hat as well, just to add to it. So I've thought this, I'll go Vancouver Rise.
All
They are
right.
the new women's professional team in Vancouver. They kick off their inaugural season in April, and they'll be kind of battling for the bucks to try and get the fans in for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
UBC Thunderbirds. That's the scarf for this. Maybe not as exciting as East Fife last year, but a lot more successful.
I about to say I like it because it ties into something different. That's, people can argue if it's better or equal or whatever, but different is what we're looking for, and that hits perfectly. I am a big college soccer guy, coaching over there for 2 years when I was up at Alfred, and really dove into it, the D3 side of it, but now looking at the D1 side and just all aspects of it. Love it. Absolutely love it. You can see I don't have my wall behind me. I'm working on getting into an apartment with a second room that I can turn into my kind of podcast studio so that I can put the wall back up. But when it's just one room, I don't really have the space for it right now. But I do still have all of my scarves, and I have broken out the old school 86ers.
Oh, nice. Now,
Yeah, it's
even I don't have an 86er scarf.
Man, this one it was a an instant buy. MLS did a very brief like throwback series where they took
Yes.
all the old ones and put them onto scarves. Now, the only thing I didn't like about it is it's basically the same design all the way across them. So I've got 86ers, I've got the old school Rapids, old school Burn, and I maybe the old school Flash. I got to remember if I have one more of them, but they're all the same. It's black on the bottom with a different color on the top, the logo in the middle, and then the logos on the side. So it's all repetitive, but different teams. So I wish they switched up
Yeah.
just a little bit, but very once I saw it, I was like, I need to take it all in. So
Oh, well,
um,
for anyone that doesn't know who the 86ers were, so in the old NASL, there was Vancouver Whitecaps. When it folded in 84, there was no football in Vancouver in 85, and then the 86ers started off in 1986. And then they became the Whitecaps again. They got to own the name back in 2001, I think it was, and they've been the Whitecaps ever since. So for the Whitecaps history, they claim the whole thing as part of Whitecaps history from 74 to present day. And the 86ers history is a part of that. They played in the Canadian Soccer League. And I think they won like four or five straight championships in the late 80s into the 90s, but way before I moved here.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a whole history side of it that we could go down the list and dive into. That might need to be another episode.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
anyone else is interested in that. My eyes just lit up when I saw it.
we are big on the history side. We have our own history series that we do kind of offset from the MLS news side of things. So when we get into Vancouver history, we'll have to give you a call back and
Oh
see if we can
yeah.
dive into it. But I feel it would be remiss not to chat about the elephant in the room before we dive into 2025 because it's weighing over it, right? So Vancouver's up for sale, and there are rumors that they are looking for investors who are going to keep the team in Vancouver. But everybody knows how these kind of things work. It's kind of up to whoever buys it to see what the next step is. And there are those rumors floating around that they may not be there at the end of the season. What is it like as a supporter with that kind of hanging over you, and just how is that impacting your thoughts on this season coming up?
It's unsettling for everyone. So for fans, for players, for media, nobody knows if I joked at the start, and like we've been doing jokes in the podcast because if you don't joke about this, it's like you'll just get depressed. That's the Scottish way of dealing with bad news. But yeah, it's hanging over everything because the guy that owns it, Greg Kerfoot, is the main owner, has put it up for sale. And he was the guy that saved the team and got the Whitecaps name back all those years ago that we are just talking about in 2001. He's done so much for soccer in the city, on the women's side as well. He's funded the women's national team program, but he's got to an age now that he's wanting to sell and give the money to his kids. He's gone through a divorce as well that's cost him quite a bit of money, and he just feels this is the time now to get out. There's going to be rumours all year round. Axel Schuster, the CEO and sporting director, has said he doesn't expect anything probably to get even done this year. It might be into 2026. And then that concerns you because you're like, oh, is it because they're like, let's get this season done and then we'll announce it afterwards in case they are leaving so that it doesn't affect ticket sales? Because if the
Mm,
team's going, and if they say, yeah, 2026, we're going to play in Indianapolis or Phoenix or Detroit, Vegas, which I don't think it would be Vegas because MLS want the expansion money from that. That that's the only thing really going with in our favor is that the MLS owners don't want it sold to a city that could get an expansion because their big Amway pyramid scheme that they've got is based on them getting basically horrible, exorbitant amounts of money. 500 million for San Diego. So the next one's what, 750?
mhm.
They don't want you to go to a front runner. So if Vegas is the front runner, we're not going to Vegas.
Right.
Indianapolis, Phoenix, maybe not going to get one of the next teams. Realistically, there's money people there. The tough thing is we don't know anyone locally that's got that kind of money that is going to want to come in on their own. So it's going to have to be a group. And everyone mentions Ryan Reynolds. He's from Vancouver. He owns Wrexham. He's bought into a Colombian team. He's got nowhere near that money, like MLS money.
Mhm.
And why would he? He can go and buy a non-league fifth tier team in England, take them up the things, and in a few years you're in the Prem for a fraction of MLS money. So it's uncertainty. There's no names that are coming forward locally. The only kind of people with a local connection that you can kind of look at are not necessarily interested or not names you would want to own the team. If you were to ask me now, do I think they'll move? Yes. I think they'll move after the World Cup if they move, because you don't want to move a team from a city that's hosting 7 World Cup matches.
Mhm.
Not a good look.
Right.
The other thing, of course, is MLS, there's all the rumours they're changing the schedule. So will there even be an MLS schedule before the World Cup next year? Or will they switch from the August to May thing? Then this could be the last season. Now that's the glass half full thing. The glass Oh, sorry, I guess glass half empty. The glass half full is they're going to find some local owners. There'll be a group of folk come in, and there's meant to be a local group that has shown interest. There is a guy, Tom Gaglardi, that I believe owns the Dallas Stars, who tried to buy Vancouver Canucks and got turned away. So he's got his local connections, and we're putting him forward as possibly the only hope because it's one way then you buy another sports team in the town and you say to the Canucks owners, this is what you could have had. We are going to go out and become the number one team in the city. So there's that aspect to it. But you're looking at 450 to 500 million American. The Canadian dollar is just going through the ground at the moment. So I I don't know. Long answer for no one knows. It is unsettling, and it is the elephant that's going to hang over the team for the whole year. And as we'll get to when we look at additions, departures, there's not been some money getting splashed about, which is just adding a little bit to the fans feeling like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, people will argue and defend the pro rel versus franchise model versus, you know, all this other stuff. And this is undoubtedly one of the big negatives that come from this sort of model is you can straight up pack it up, all of the history that comes again when we're talking about Vancouver being not just a team that started in 96, but has all of this history all the way back to the NASL days and prior to all of that. And you can just package it up, tie a nice bow on it, and move it across the country, right? It is
Yeah.
undoubtedly one of the most negative parts about this system, and it from an outsider and from a neutral point of view, it breaks my heart, right? You hate to see stuff like that happening, and you truthfully, I think, and I don't think there's anybody out there who's like, yeah, get them out of there, right? I haven't seen any yet, but I'm truthfully hoping that somebody can come in with the right mindset and understanding of what this team means to the area and what this team means to history in this sport and preserve it. That's kind of the general feel here, but gonna have to wait and see. You're right. It's uncertain.
Yeah.
It is elephant in the room, right?
Well, we're the second least valued. I won't use the F word.
Hmm.
I can't say that word. I have to say club. So we're the
That's fine.
second least valued club. It's because I'm a AFC Wimbledon fan, so that's why. But we're the
Gotcha.
second least valued club in MLS. We
Mhm.
don't own a stadium. We've got a training centre that we just have a little share of. So we've no tangible assets.
Mhm.
And if somebody really wants a team in MLS, this is the cheapest way they're ever going to get it.
Yeah.
And that is the concerning thing.
Yep. And again, it's disappointing because it is all money at the moment, and there is a I'm assuming I don't imagine these businessmen are going in without a 5, 10, 15 year plan of
Mhm.
where this is all going to go, but it does put a little sour taste in your mouth for sure.
Oh,
So
definitely.
yeah, so we keep our fingers crossed, and all we can do is look forward to the next day, the next week, the next month. So it is a new era in Vancouver, right? Now on the sporting side of things, right?
Mm.
After falling in to this playoff or the play-in game rather, they were bounced by LAFC in the first round of the playoffs, and then dismissed head coach Vanni Sartini, right? In comes Jesper Sorensen from Brøndby, and he's going to try to lead them through a tough Western Conference that, as much as it is the sporting aspect, is also going to have to deal with what we just spoke about. He's got a lot more than just the game to worry about, right? They did win the Canadian Championship last year, making sure that they earn this spot in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they will be participating in this year, as well as their Canadian Championship. Looking for a better draw, I think, in the Champions Cup. I don't know if it's come out yet, but hopefully they get something better than Tigres.
Oh, yeah, we've got a good draw. We've got Saprissa from Costa Rica,
Oh, very
uh,
nice. Okay.
home and away. The captain of that team used to play for us, Kendall
Kendall
Waston,
Waston. Yeah, I love
MLS
Kendall.
legend. We're actually
Yes,
speaking
sir.
to him on the podcast because the guy I do the podcast with, him and Kendall have kept in touch. They're good friends.
Oh,
He went
awesome.
down to Costa Rica in August, and Kendall treated him like a king. Gave him a tour
Amazing.
of the ground. He was allowed to go anywhere he wanted. So, yeah, so we're looking forward to catching up with Kendall. But that should be fine. Then after that, it gets tricky for us because we've probably got Pumas.
Oh, yeah, that is going to be tough. So, but it is better than the Tigres off the bat move. So
Yes.
hopefully it gets a good, I hope he gets a good reception when he comes back. I do hope he is welcomed, and I'm sure he will be. From everything I've heard, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. Like there's some fan. He kind of left a little bit under a cloud, which I won't go into. But I think he was a bit misunderstood. So we're kind of wanting him to put his side of things out as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we talked about this 2024 year. They fell into this play-in game. They weren't able to host their own play-in game. They travel on the road. They beat the snot out of Portland, and then they go toe to toe with LAFC. But what were your thoughts on the 2024 year? What'd you feel about it? And your
it,
thoughts while we're here. Sorry, and your thoughts while we're here because we don't really touch on it here. But your thoughts on the Vanni Sartini move too.
yeah, I mean, if you asked for just one word to sum up 2024, it was underachieved. This was a team that easily could have been top four in the West. Should have been top four in the West, definitely top seven. They just had this horrendous run of form late summer that just saw them fall down, down, and down. And they were never in danger of not being in the playoffs. But to fall into the play-in game when 4 weeks earlier we were talking about realistically being second was like not on anyone's plans. And because of that, we couldn't then play at BC Place because at no point did we think we were going to be in the play-in game. So we couldn't get the stadium. It had already been booked. That wasn't an issue because we were never going to be in that game. But then we were. Now I went down to Portland for that game. Just any chance to get down the Oregon coast that I take, and went into that apprehensive, genuinely thinking the season was ending that night. Left stunned. That was a demolition beyond belief. In any game, in a playoff game more, in a derby playoff game even more. And that was the best game they played all year. Everything clicked. And you wonder where that was for the previous 8 weeks. Because if they played like that, we would have been top four, probably top two. And then LAFC, the old nemesis, it, we gave them a run for their money, took it to a third game. Third game, just a missed opportunity in the first half from Brian White, a bad defensive play in the second, 1-0 defeat, season ends. After that, the general feeling was this was a team that should have done more. So because of that, you look at the coach. And I am somebody that I've made it clear, I think it was the right decision to let Vanni Sartini go. He took that team, that squad, as far as I think he could. And everybody knows he put Vancouver on the map. His antics, good, bad, ugly sometimes. He was like a quote machine. It's like you just loved speaking to him. I had a really good relationship with Vanny, actually going out for coffee with him this coming week.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
that's
like
sick.
he knows. I'm honest with him. It's like I think it was the right decision. He disagrees, but but he did question that himself in his post-season musings of he said maybe I'm not the right guy to take this forward. As soon as you put that out there, then you're like, he's gone.
Yeah.
It's like if you're even contemplating that. So it took them 2 weeks. They got rid of him. They've replaced it with a guy that we know nothing about, to be honest. We are going to be sitting down and having a big chat with him, but Jesper's wanted some time in the door before sitting down and giving a good chat. I would say to put it in terms for people across America listening and watching this, you've gone from Vanni Sartini and what he's like personality wise, and you've replaced him personality wise with a Bob Bradley or Bruce Arena. So it's a shock to us. He was asked after his introductory press conference by a friend of mine who was just asking him stuff. Oh, what do you do for fun? I'm not here for fun. I'm here to win football matches, which is great. I love
Yeah.
that. But you're like, we're not going to have these quotes coming out of it. It's not going to be going on about socialism and quoting Frida Kahlo and all these philosophers. So we don't know what we're getting yet. And there's been a couple of pre-season matches. You can't glean anything from it. All we seem to know from speaking to some players, 4-3-3 is the formation that we're going with. Vanni Sartini didn't like wingers, even though he signed wingers and the wingers were really successful. And I think we're going to have a different kind of Whitecaps. We're going to have two wingers, Brian White up front, Ryan Gauld behind him, but that's as far as we know.
So I reckon we're not going to see Jesper up on stage with any bands singing Nickelback
I
anytime
wouldn't
soon.
think so. Unless some weird Danish band comes over here, then I can't even think of a Danish band to be honest.
Oh, that's funny. That was one of the funniest stories I ever saw. But we
Yeah,
had we
and
had said the same thing about Vanny was he may have taken them as far as he could go. You know, we saw that with Gary Smith in Nashville. We've seen that with
mhm.
a couple of other coaches in this league where they are very good to do the bare minimum and get them to a certain point, but they don't have it in them to take it to that next level. So, that was something that we had floated around too. I still, it felt like a move that would have been more understood if he was gone and in the next 2 days they had somebody in the door. Like, okay, we had somebody, we knew we wanted to get him. When Red Bull let Mike Petke go and instantly brought in Jesse Marsh, it was like, okay, clearly there was a plan here. For them to take as long as they did, it was like, what are we doing? Right? If you didn't know
Yes.
right off the bat and you were kind of hoping somebody was going to land, why not just hold on to him then? That was kind of the only thing that was floating around in my head for sure.
Well, they lost their first choice as well. Now it's never been confirmed that it was him, but he was a German coach and he took a team that he'd played for and loved in Germany in the Bundesliga, so he went there. So
Hmm.
then they had to restart the search. So yeah, I mean it was odd not to have anyone lined up, but at least it made it feel that they got the best man for the job. I can't until we see it. I don't know, and it's one hell of a tough start to the season as well.
Yeah.
So it might be a few months before we really know.
Yeah. It'll be something to keep an eye on too. But we were talking about it before with the elephant in the room and the uncertainty over where the money's going to go. And you mentioned it kind of before is there hasn't been a lot in terms of incoming signings. And usually we are out here asking like, oh, who's the best of the group that's come in? What are your thoughts on Jaden Nelson? Because it seems to be the only one
Yes,
you got so far.
I know. I was thinking that because you said what the questions were going to be, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, the best player that's come in. So is it Jaden or is it Jaden? There is a second one I will actually throw in there, but no,
Mhm.
Jaden Nelson just had a lovely chat with the guy. He seems a lovely lad.
Mhm.
We know him in Canada. He played with Toronto. He's been in the national team. He is a baller. He's got so much talent. He was always going to go to Europe. He's another guy that's come from Brampton, Ontario, and Brampton has produced so many footballers. It is bizarre for a small town in Canada. So he went from TFC. He went over to Norway, Rosenborg, lit it up there. 8 goals, 9 assists, I think it is, in 44 appearances. And then he wanted to go to a bigger team. He went to a Bundesliga 2 team. Things did not work out there for him. And he was not, he didn't have a great time there. And he's very honest about that. He knows he's come back. He has to prove to himself, to the fans, to everyone that he is the Jaden Nelson that we know. And he's a good Fafa Pico replacement because he's a guy that's going to be in the wing. He's going to contribute goals. He's going to contribute assists. He has got pace that is really going to cause problems for defenses. But he can't do it all on his own. And there needs to be more players that come in. And I don't know how many we're going to have and at what point. The only other player really to talk about is draft pick Tate Johnson, 19-year-old from North Carolina, who's had experience in USL with Tampa, left back. We keep getting told he has shone more than anyone in pre-season. So we'll see. He's not going to be a starter, but it does sound like he's going to feature at some point over the course of the season. He's one to watch. He's still young. I don't know. It's not one that's going to excite and sell tickets, but we've told he's done great. And Ryan Gould's taken him under his wing. So he's like Ryan Gould's project. So the players are all joking he's like Ryan's special boy. So I don't know if anyone's a wrestling fan. It's like when you go over to Japan and you're a young boy for the master. That's what Tate Johnson is to Ryan Gold right now. But yeah, Jaden Nelson, that's our signing of the off season.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hopefully Tate Johnson's the next draft, success story, right? You always have one or two that come out that are like, never heard of the guy, of course, because not many people are following college soccer like they are college football or basketball. But he comes out and he nets you maybe a couple $1 million in a transfer, or
Hmm.
brings you stability in a position that you weren't planning on being stable in. So hopefully he has that about him. But yeah, like I said, I think Nelson is not the worst addition you can make, but I would agree you would definitely need a little bit more to solidify certain areas. But yeah, that 8 goals, 8, 9 assists at only 22 years old overseas, I think is a good baseline to work off of. And I think that he definitely can bring you a bit of success if integrated properly and if given the right time to succeed, right? So there's not a lot to talk about coming in. There wasn't really a ton of talk about going out either. I think you mentioned a couple here, but would you list anybody as a massive loss?
Well, Fafa Pico's the big one.
Hmm.
And he was the only one I was going to mention in this point, apart from recent activity that has literally just happened a couple of days ago, which is designated player Stuart Armstrong has gone back to the UK, having made 11 Hull appearances for the
Oh,
team. Only 5 of them starts, and it's another designated player signing in Vancouver that has gone horribly.
we joked. I think it was Inbom Huang was one of the other signings way back when, and he did the same
Mm.
thing. He came in for like half a year and bounced, and that was right when we were starting up. And we started doing a bit of research. And we're like, what is with Vancouver and holding on to designated players for all but like nothing, and then just shipping them right back out as soon as a single offer comes in.
Yes.
And again, back then it was kind of funny, but now you consider it in the purview of what we were just talking about, where they're just trying to rack up as much money maybe as they can before they move it on. I
Yeah,
consider that.
in Stu Armstrong's case, it's not that though.
Okay,
He never wanted to come to MLS.
really?
And we were told that the Whitecaps were interested and they'd made him an offer and he turned it down and said no. But then no other offers came in that were anywhere near what the Whitecaps offered, so he changed his mind. He came here, but he's apparently from the word go said, I want a chance to get back to the Premier League, and if an offer comes in, I want to be able to go. So he's gone to a team that's not even in the playoff places in the
Well,
championship
I
right
was about to,
now.
I was about to say he wants to go back to the Prem and he picks Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, the time of recording this, they're just 2 points off the playoff spots. So even then, you've still got to get through the playoffs, and that's not easy. So this has given him a chance. I think the Wednesday deal might even just be to the end of the season. We've been told it's worth, if he gets him to the Prem, if he makes all these appearances, just $600,000. So it'll be paid in 3 installments. We did get him on a free transfer, but his salary was 2.8. So even if you pro rata that to a third of the year, you're still making a loss.
Mhm.
But he also, this is the reason he didn't want to come to MLS was no disrespect to MLS. His wife had literally just had a baby,
Oh, that makes sense.
and all their in-laws and support system was in England.
Hmm.
So I I had joked, it was one of my predictions. We did a prediction thing on the podcast at the end of the year, and my prediction was he was going to go for that reason. And then I cut that out because I thought, I don't want to put that thought in folks' heads. And now I wish
Right.
I'd kept it in because it was
You
always
had
on the
the proof.
cards for me. Yeah, always on the cards to happen. he is going to be a huge loss, but we never saw the best of him.
Hmm.
But that playoff game in Portland, the way that he linked up with Gold, with White, with Pico, that was like, mwah, best
Yeah.
Whitecaps. And now you've lost two of those four. So you're relying on Brian White again having a career season. He's had two in a row. I,
Yeah.
I don't know how many career seasons one guy can have in a row. And you're relying on Ryan Gauld not getting injuries. And considering he's had a couple of concussions in recent years, as has Brian White, you're one really bad challenge away from your team being in dire straits here.
Yep. Yeah, no disagreements there. Like I said, I also listed Armstrong in there, not for what he gave you, but what he could have gave you
Yeah.
or given you, I should say.
He's,
Where
he's a great player. So, like, a lot of fans are downing him and saying it was a bust. It
Mhm.
wouldn't have been if he'd stayed. And it happened very quickly. He was playing a friendly against St. Pat's when Sheffield Wednesday got in touch saying, "Oh, I would like to sign him." So, I mean, that was risky. He could have, we've had that happen before. Matthias Laba had a signing lined up. They played him, he got injured, the signing fell apart.
Yeah, they're like, no, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I
Yes.
mean, he's a loss, but Fafa Pico's a huge loss. But again, a player that had a career year. And you're asking, can he do it again? He wanted to go, he wanted to leave because his family's in Miami. There'd been some health issues there. He was flying down to Miami at any opportunity he could, which from Vancouver's not easy.
Right.
And he wanted to be closer to Miami, couldn't be much closer than actually signing for Miami. So that to me is probably going to be the biggest loss. But if Nelson can perform, then it's maybe like for like, and we've got a younger guy as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's why I didn't pick Pico, especially because there were going to be a change in shape, and he might have needed to readjust to things. And you seem to have replaced him anyway, which was good. So with the lack of signings and the lack of and some of these big names leaving on, somebody's going to need to step up. Who do you think might be the player to watch, or maybe somebody who can break out into this side in 2025?
I mean, we're hoping Jaden Nelson
Mhm.
is going to be a guy that he could win best returning player to MLS if he has a great season. But it's a big year for Ali Ahmed because he burst onto the scene in 2023. 2024 was not what we were expecting from Ali Ahmed. He was amazing for Canada, didn't quite do it for the Whitecaps. And he needs to be better this year, especially with the World Cup coming. And if that midfield is going to click and tick, it's going to be through Ali Ahmed. So he's definitely the guy that we kind of need to really rise to the occasion. I'm hoping it's going to be a guy that we don't even have on the roster yet.
Yeah, that's fair. If I remember correctly, you picked him last year.
I did. It
Good,
was the kiss
good.
of death.
Yeah, hopefully we reverse that this time
Yeah.
because that's usually our gig. We usually pick somebody. I always use the Kip Keller experiment where I said Kip Keller in Austin year two was ready to break in to be a top 10 center back in MLS. He played one Champions Cup game, scored an own goal, and passed the ball to their striker inside the box within the same like 15-minute span. He then never played again, got shipped to three different teams, and still hasn't made more than 10 appearances in a season. So hopefully that doesn't happen anywhere here because I have picked for you all a player who I'm interested in because he got a little bit of game time last year, but not a ton. It was Edier Ocampo. Now, I don't know much about him, but he from my research, the U22 signing, which is always big because these sorts of players have high expectations on high price tags. But a right back from Colombia, see if he can get settled quickly into this new system and what he can contribute to you. It's just somebody that, you know, I think of if I remember correctly, it was Jake Nerwinski, who was kind of like that right back in Vancouver. I may be wrong there.
Yeah, we never like for me, Jake's problem was he never got the assists that I want from a
Hmm.
fullback. Like I like my fullbacks tearing up the wings, sending the
Hmm.
crosses in, and Jake just didn't bring that here. Now,
Gotcha.
Ocampo has the skills to do that. We didn't see enough of him last year. It felt Vanny didn't have the trust in him to
Mm.
really throw him into the big moments. That said, he never played as right back here
Oh,
in the
really?
times that he came on. He was playing either right wing or right wing back. So we still have never actually seen him as right back. But I think that's a good shout from you. He looks electric when he's on the ball. He's got this spark to him, and he does tear up that wing. And he is one of the guys as well that's apparently been keen to impress in pre-season. And the good thing for a guy like him is you've got Sorensen that's come in, and he doesn't know these guys from Adam. It's like the only joke that I've heard Sorensen make so far is everyone knows who Brian White is. I don't, because Brian was away with the American team, delivered
Right.
in this dry Danish delivery. But it's like, yeah, he doesn't know anyone. So like a Campo can just go and go, hey, this is me, coach. This is what I can do. And he's like, "Phew, yeah, he's in my team." So
Yep.
no, that's a good shout.
Yeah, I like it. I think when I likened him to Nerwinski, it wasn't necessarily in play style, but more as somebody who can just be the guy who he's there week in and week out, not kind of questioning, oh, is he going to be playing right wing back today? Is he gonna be playing right wing? Like he's just going to stick in there. You knew Jake Nerwinski was Vancouver's right back, and
Mhm.
that was in and out. So hopefully he can get himself settled and just start to contribute, whether it be as an attacking fullback, as an attacking wingback, whatever his role is, he can just settle and do it, and we just know it's going to be him. So that's kind of my hope there. There are a lot of questions floating around this group. Lots of questions, lots of unknowns. What's kind of the one big one for you that you're just keeping an eye on in this year?
Who are we going to get to support Brian White up front? Because right now it is slim pickings. They've had no, well, the only player that was kind of linked to them, I'm totally blanking on his first name, but the American international Hop.
Oh, Matthew Hoppy?
Yeah, Hoppy, Matthew
Yeah.
Hoppy. So he was in camp, and I was like, please don't sign him. He is
No.
terrible.
Yeah.
And thankfully they're not. And I was like, oh, that's a dreadful signing if they go for him. So he's not. But he's been the only forward that's been linked to the team. So right now, if Brian goes down, we've got some young guys that might be able to step. Well, this Damir Krylak,
Hmm.
who did not perform to RSL 2021, Damir Krylak last year, and just struggled. He had an injury then, and just I loved him at RSL. I was so excited that we had kind of brought him in, and it just yeah. So they've got him. So if he has a breakout season, there is him. And Vanny was very confident that he would. So we'll see. There's a young striker, Nicolas Florio Chateau, who we got in the draft last year. Amazing player for WFC2. And he's a bulldozer. He'll just like barge his way through, literally. He's had a few minutes and already got a yellow card for like bundling someone over like he was hit by a truck. So there's him, but we need more depth. That's the big question. Where are the goals going to come from if Brian White is not performing to his 2 career years that he's just had?
Yeah, which you know it's coming. You got to know it's coming. For me, it's a question around this new coach bounce, right? You see it every time a new coach comes in. Everybody kind of has this pep in their step. They're playing a little bit higher level than maybe they are in a 34 game season, and they're trying to impress and they're trying to play really well. How long is that going to last before they're like, okay, back down? And then when they come back down from that, what does that look like,
Mm.
right? Because you're there's always, I think of Everton right now. I'm an Everton
Mhm.
supporter in England, and right, David Moyes comes in, three on the bounce. We're scoring goals left, right, and center. We're gonna drop down at some point back to a more predictable play style and performances. What is that going to look like for Vancouver, and where will that end up putting them in their team, or in the standings rather? Where will they put the team in the standings? So I guess it's a decent way to transition into where do you think this team is going to finish in 2025?
I mean, right now, if you ask me in a month, I might feel different. But right now, I'm not optimistic. I don't see us in the playoffs. My most optimistic thing would be 12th.
Oh,
And even that, I'm not confident with. Like you look at San Jose, dreadful last year, have made amazing additions this off-season.
hmm.
They've got a better roster than Vancouver. They're going to do better than Vancouver on paper. Now, we might suddenly bring something out of some of our players or make some amazing additions or have a great summer. But my worry is we've a really tough start to the year. First game's away to Portland. Phil Neville's got that circled already.
Yeah, I bet.
First home game. Oh, it's just the MLS champs. It's then we've got a trip to Costa Rica and a home Champions Cup game as well, sandwiched in between all that. So it's not the easiest start for him. And everything he does is going to get compared to Vanny. This is Sorensen I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And if he doesn't win the Canadian Championship, it's like, well, Vanny just won three in a row. Why did you get rid of Vanny? So he's got the pressure on him,
Hmm.
and he knows that he has to perform from the start, and he'll play it down. But the pressure is on him big time, and the pressure is on Brian White and Ryan Gauld big time. And right now, I just don't think the supporting cast is there when you see what the rest of the West have done. And I think it could be a long, long, tough season. And for a club that's up for sale, going back to how we started all this, that's a tough sell.
Hmm. Yeah,
Not
no,
in terms of an owner, but in terms of the fans coming through the gate.
that's right. That's right. And that's what it's all about, right? At the end of the day, it's you're doing it for the people in the stands and at home. So listen, you've got some good players on this team. You've got Ryan Gauld, who is an elite playmaker. You've got Brian White, who, as you said, has really found his stride in Vancouver. I did mention that Stuart Armstrong looked pretty good. That is now gone. Ali Ahmed is exciting for Canada. Can he put that into play in a Vancouver shirt? Outside of that, and specifically down the spine of the team, I'm not super thrilled. Right, I don't love the center mid group that you've got at the moment. I think that they're not at the same level as some other teams in the West. I don't love the center back options outside of maybe Tristan Blackman, and that's at maybe. I think and Veselinovic is also solid there, but I think he needs a proper partner next to him. And I don't really love Takaoka either. I think he's good on his best days and he's sketchy on his normal days, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So because of that and with everything else floating around, I'm going to go with between 10 and 14. I don't like to put a strong number on it yet because we do our own little prediction thing and I need time to pivot. But
Yeah, I need to see the other teams as well. But
yeah,
I think we can both agree we're not looking at a playoff team right now.
no, no. I originally had them fighting for a play-in game with Armstrong, but with Armstrong out, I don't see it.
I would bite your hand off for a playing game if you offered it to me right now. I take that. Because once you're in the playoffs, anything can
Anything can
happen.
happen. Look at Red Bull last year,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I watched my boys go from nearly missing the playoffs to the final game of the season, in the most ridiculous. I mean, look at Atlanta and Miami, right? I mean, anything can happen.
Yes.
So let's hope. Let's keep our fingers crossed then, because I mean, listen, Vancouver is a fun team. I mean,
Well, they
they
were.
were a lot of fun when Vanny was there. I'm hoping they don't lose that because it was always a lot of fun to watch Vancouver play. So hopefully that sticks around with them. But yeah, I'm not feeling playoffs for this group. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for cheering me up.
Yeah, I tried my best. But listen, Mike. Thanks so much again for coming down. We always love having you on the show. And like I said, Connor wished he could be here, but I know he was excited before he knew what his schedule was. He was excited for this one. So take a minute here, tell everybody where to find you.
Uh, find all our stuff. AFTN.ca stands for Away from the Numbers. And written stuff in there. We cover Whitecaps. We'll be covering the Rise and local college soccer, amateur soccer, the Canadian Premier League. Our podcast is the longest running soccer podcast in Canada. Been going since 2013. And yeah, you can just find all our stuff in that. And you'll find the podcast AFTN Soccer Show just in all the usual places. And we don't do a lot of YouTube stuff because face for the radio more. And if you think this one's bad, my co-host even worse. So you won't find a lot of our stuff on YouTube, but we might start to do a bit more this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you guys heard it, listeners, you guys heard it before. All the interviews that they're getting set up, they have access to all of the best stuff. So go on, give them a follow, make sure that you are taking it all in because they give you some of the best behind the scenes looks at these teams. If you're new here and you like what we do, give us a follow because we have 27 more of these coming from 27 other teams. So we got lots and lots of preseason coverage, and then we dive right into it and keep up with all of the MLS news, MLS history, and all the good stuff there. But Michael, thank you so much again for joining us. We really, really had a good time, and we like I said, hopefully we can get you back on and we chat a little bit more when Connor's back. I know he wants to chat with you again, but guys, thank you much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.